The rematch between Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira Part 2. So the reason why these two guys are now fighting each other is because it seems like there is nobody right now that can really do anything to Charles Oliveira. The guy has great knockout power. On top of that, he is the leader of the most submissions in the UFC. However, I don't see this rematch going any different. The only difference, I would say, is perhaps maybe the results. Meaning that instead of a finish with a second round submission, rather what you're going to get this time is a much more formidable Charles Oliveira, a guy that has learned his lesson, but in reality, a guy that will never be on Islam Makhachev's level. Because it's just one of those situations where 9 times out of 10, and in reality, 10 times out of 10, it's always going to be Islam Makhachev that's going to come out on top. Because he just has the style to be able to beat the likes of Charles Oliveira. And let me explain why. Number one, you got to understand, people are thinking that Charles Oliveira has a chance because of Volkanovski and how he made Islam look human. Well, let me explain to you what Volkanovski has and what Oliveira doesn't have. For one, what Volkanovski has is a great wrestling pedigree. Not a lot of people knew that he wrestled in the national levels in Australia way before he was a rugby player, which is the reason why not only is he athletic because of the rugby, but he's also a formidable and a veteran combat athlete, being that he is a former amateur wrestler. So with that in mind, he's able to dictate certain things to Islam that Charles Oliveira can't. Both have great knockout power, both have a great striking prowess in their own way. The difference is that Volk is able to show it because of the fact that he has the wrestling to compete with Islam Makhachev. Maybe not better than him, but enough to compete and make the match look like the way that it did when they fought in Perth, Australia. So that is something to take into high consideration. But also, you got to understand, when you're coming from a grappling background, it is a lot easier to pick up striking as opposed to coming into striking and picking up wrestling later in MMA. Unless you're Israel Adesanya. But I can tell you, when I trained at Team Alpha Male, one of the coaches, Kenneth Alexander, was the former WEC veteran. One of his most notable wins in that organization, he beat Razor Rob McCullough, right? Former Marine. And then on top of that, he is one of the biggest coaches in Team Alpha Male at the time. Let me tell you what he said. He said, if you want to go into MMA, it is better to have a grappling background first and then a striking background to follow after. Because the base of wrestling is so strong that it's going to continuously dictate fights and dictate where matches are going to go and what the competitor of the wrestling, higher pedigree is going to wish for in the pace of the match, in the direction of where they want to take it in the cage. Maybe they want to take it in the fence. Maybe they want to stuff takedowns and just stay on the feet. That is the quintessential opposite of Charles Oliveira, and this is the reason why he was able to not look as good as Volkanovski did. And that's just the reality of it. So I see this with Islam Makhachev winning by decision, but a much more improved Charles Oliveira. Other than that, like and subscribe, because you need wrestling in order to be one of the top dogs in the game. Even if you win by striking with the likes of Strickland and Izzy and all these other guys like Volk, there's still wrestling involved with clinching or anti-clinching or using different methods to alleviate other styles that are preventing you from striking, i.e. stuffing takedowns. So, like and subscribe again. That's my official prediction for UFC 294. More on UFC 294 down the road, but for now, Islam Makhachev by decision. Don't forget to like and subscribe.